Good morning, everyone. We're so excited to have you here for this week's webinar. I've got Mike Boren, our CTO, and Jon Bowser, Head of Development, here today. They're going to be previewing some of the features in Estimator 2019.1.0 that they're most excited about, and they're also going to be answering a few questions from our audience today. I'm going to hand it over to Mike, and we'll get started.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, hey, like Melissa said, we are really excited to present today. Our Estimator 2019.1.0 version is the most groundbreaking version of Estimator that's been delivered today. It was actually a little bit of a struggle to figure out who was going to present this. Both Jon and I are really passionate about the work that's gone into this version, and so we decided to co-present. And the flow is going to be a little bit ad hoc, but we're going to just kind of both talk to you guys a little bit about what we really like and walk you through some of the big pieces of this application, the big changes that are happening in this version. The 2019.1.0 version is just about a complete rewrite of the application, is a replatforming of DESTINI Estimator. One of the things that software companies have to do from time to time is to make sure that their applications can move forward as the technologies changes, as platforms change, as new ideas come about. And sometimes they are large-scale efforts to do that. And this is one of those instances where Beck Technology decided that we needed to take a very big investment in making sure that we were able to target the future and able to offer the type of products and features that our customers are needing as they go into the future. So what you're seeing now is how our 2018 and prior versions of Estimator work. They were a file-based system. And what that means is, like Word and Excel, when you go to save a document, it's a file on your machine, and then you can hand that file off to people as you share that information. This worked for a time, and when we wanted to have information merge between estimates, you'd have to have a specific set of functionality around being able to get a document from somebody, merge it in with your existing estimate, and then kind of handle all that additional data and figure out how it all lined up. This obviously was very limiting, and it definitely did not allow us to take what we see as the next major step in estimating evolution. So in 2019.1.0, we are moving to a database system, a database back-ended system, but it's more than that. It's going to be something that is built in such a way that allows us to move into a lot of great technology, not only for working with our partners like Autodesk or others in that field, but also being able to add in additional technology going forward, integrations with products like scheduling, cost management, that kind of stuff, and being able to tightly integrate that data in the same place. One thing you might hear from time to time is this desire to have the single source of truth, one piece of data where everything is connected, and so that way you're not recreating the wheel. That way you're not having disjoint pieces of information where one person on a project is working with a completely out-of-date piece of information and they don't realize it, and that causes all kinds of problems. So it not only gives us that, it also gives us the ability to offer some pretty amazing tech in the form, at least of today, as historical costing. And so one of the things that we'll be showing toward the end of this presentation is our unveiling of a new historical costing platform, which is if not the main reason, definitely one of the largest reasons why we had to take this shift into a new cloud-based platform, which has a database backend. Now, just to be clear, Estimator is still an app on your machine, but it does now have the ability to reference estimates and cost data anywhere. So that could be local, that could be on your intranet, that could be on a cloud, and then the application, your estimating application, acts as an app. So it gives you the ability to work locally. It'll give you the ability to work connected to data sources, the same data source all across the country through concepts like cloud-based SQL servers. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. I just wanted to give a little bit of a baseline as to what's going on, why it's important, and why this is such a big deal, both for Beck Technology as well for our users. With that, maybe I'm going to hand it over to you, Jon, if you want to start out. I know you're super passionate about some of this initial piece for sure.
Mike mentioned a lot of great stuff in there. The big database change was huge for us. But we can geek out on that all day. But sometimes it's the little things that our developers and us just kind of get really excited about. And so the first thing you'll see when you launch Estimators is an overhaul kind of start screen on how you actually interact with the estimates you've created. So you can kind of see here now, we put pictures in front of your face. We're able to kind of show you specific data that you care about those different projects. So you can see here, you can see total cost, client data, and some other information about the projects themselves. So outside of the totally revamped UI, we've thought about how can we now take advantage of this repository of data, this database that houses all these data estimates. So we've changed the way you actually find your data too. So now it's not really hit file open, switch to your network drive and kind of browse through, maybe use Insight, maybe use Box, maybe use what other system there may be out there. But now it's all in this database. We can just start using keywords to find data. So for example, maybe I've got some hospitals in here, so I can come in here and search for any hospital work I've done. So I type in hospital, and I just get a slew of estimates. Well, and there's a handful of hospitals here. Really, I know we did some work in Denver, so maybe I'm looking for hospitals that are in Denver. So I hit that, and okay, I get a different set. So you can see here now, I've still got a handful of hospitals, but out of the gate, I can see I've got some that are actually in Denver. So now I can just using normal keywords and just how I think about my projects, find that data. And so I no longer have to worry about, okay, our file structure got moved around, where did we move these past projects, or what happened in 2017? Anybody remember what happened with that job with so-and-so? Like all that goes out of the window. Now just using those keywords, I can kind of find that data a lot faster and a lot easier. On top of that, you may notice here, there's a little version label here that tells you kind of where this project was in the whole grand scheme of things. One of the things we were able to do now with this really big database backend for all these estimates is you can actually more easily track the progression of these projects through their life, all the way from early SD to late CD development. So you'll notice here, this particular estimate has been as recent as 75% DD. I can see it's got a total cost of around 19 million, but maybe I need to go back to some earlier decisions that happened, and so I can actually come back here and say, you know what, I need to go look at 10% SD. So not only am I switching now to that earlier version of the estimate, I can quickly see, some high-level data about what's different about that project. And that's all specific to you and how you want to see that data. So again, no longer do I have to worry about and go dig up these 4, 5, 10 old estimates, open them up, look at them, decide, nope, that's right or wrong, and move on to the next. It's right all there at your fingertips. And that's just some of the cool stuff that we're now able to do and that we're kind of leveraging and taking advantage of with this big database system now.
Well, hey, John, while we're here and before we get into the estimates, I would really, really, really like to show them something on our Find Estimate page. Would you mind if before we switch over, one of the things that I think is super awesome is we have templates. Would you just click on real fast the new button and show the template? So we've always had templates. And one of the things that templates, they're baked into our process. Templates are basically an estimate, or basically you can think about it like it's a pre-built estimate. It's a starting platform for all of your future estimates. And so if you have layouts, or if you like to cut, slice, and dice your estimate in specific ways, especially based on type, like hospital or office, you can pre-configure that. And it's one of the things that our teams do really well, is as we onboard our clients, our services teams will actually work with our clients to pre-build these estimates for them. And it's one of the things I think that enables us to have a little bit of a game changer as it comes to onboarding and getting started, is you have a lot of this pre-built stuff already ready for you. So you can see here, we still obviously have templates. It's still a big part of what we offer, and it's a big part of Estimator. And the templates themselves have a lot of functionality around being able to group and sort based off of particular properties. And so there's a new concept. There's a little button on the top right-hand corner that enables you to look at different aspects of your templates and say, I want to break templates down by project type or by client, that kind of stuff. This is also available in that window that John was just showing, which I think is super amazing. So not only can you do things like find, but you can also completely cut, slice, and dice all of your estimates based off of any type of data that happens to be in there. And this data is served up here in a list of properties. So this is fully customizable. It's however you want to think about your data, and there's nothing extra that you need to do as an estimator to get it to do this, other than just typing the normal information into your estimates that you always would. And the great thing, taking it back to templates, John, is that you get that ability to have a lot of that pre-configured. So if I start from an office template or a hospital template, a lot of that information is already in place. And I just think that was really neat.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, let me take back control for a second. I'm going to open up our one of our templates. It's a hospital template real fast. And I wanted to show something here. So here, if you guys can see my screen, what I've done is I've just opened up a hospital template, and you'll notice it looks just like, almost like an empty estimate, which for all intents and purposes, it pretty much is. The difference is we've added some new functionality to help better curate the experience of the estimator as they start those new projects. And one of those pieces is the ability to have in our project information view, when you have properties that are available in your project, and these could be anything, so total building area, site size, type of project, type of structure, any information you want this estimate to carry. Here in the template, anything you add here is a default starting platform for all of your new estimates. The thing that's new is this little column right here where it says ask. So when this column is checked, it actually will show up when you create a new estimate. It will ask the estimator to fill in these values. And so you can pre-configure what types of information your estimating teams answer or set as they create projects. Now, it's not the only time they can go in and set this. Obviously, they can come in later and do it. But it definitely helps getting the right data in early and being able to set that. Another piece that I think is really awesome is that in these, this could be, you know, some text, it's something they type in, it could be a number, or it could be a hard-keyed drop-down list they have to pick from. So in this case, I've got structure type. If I click here, I just click little ellipses here to show you the values. Here are some structure types that we've added, and literally adding a new value is just as simple as typing it in. Another example might be building type. And here I've only got hospital, which kind of makes sense for a project, but honestly, you would probably have these pre-configured with a handful of different values and then have that the same for all of your templates if you wanted to. So here I could say, hey, this might be mixed use. You know, this could be office. Obviously, we want hospital as the one we're going to use as the default, but I just wanted to show you guys what it looked like to add values. And then, of course, this is a drop-down. So now I must pick from this drop-down. I can no longer just free type in values here. Now,
yeah, I was gonna just talk to you. So you know, Mike's shown some of that data, but how does that really feel to the estimator? So I can just grab control real quick, kind of walk you all through how that kind of feels.
See how it is, John, steal my word.
You know, it's all the exciting stuff I want to talk to. So you just saw Mike in there playing with those properties. You know, he looked at the structure type, for example, showed that it was a drop down. You know, as we were talking to people during the development of 2019.1.0, it was that kind of stuff that came up with, hey, when we're talking about historical data, I'm really worried about typos or misspellings, or just, I think if one estimator thinks about the project differently from somebody else, just having inconsistent data. And so having those drop down values helps with that. So now when the estimator does go in there to create those projects, they're able to leverage that. So now, you know, in this case, Mike said, hey, ask about the structure type when creating an estimate. So now when I use that template and I go to create an estimate, I can now pick, okay, I'm doing cast in place or steel or tilt or however this thing is configured, so that when estimators do set up these new jobs, that data is consistent, and you're really going to be able to use that later on when you're looking at that historical data, doing that data mining, trying to find all these projects that meet these specific criteria that you care about, figuring out how things behaved, where can use as a starting point, all that information. And that's just one of the new enhancements we've made when creating estimates. One of the things that I showed a little bit earlier was talking about changing versions for estimates. I could create a new estimate for you real quick and walk through adding costs, but just to save a little bit of time, I went ahead and opened up one that already had a bunch of costs in here. So here's just a real quick early conceptual estimate, but now I need to start moving into the SD phase. What it used to be before with Estimator and other systems, is I would, okay, hit save this off to some other location, rename the file, copy it, rename it again, and there's my next version of the estimate as I move forward in the process. It works, but it can definitely be tedious, and that just leads to losing files. Folders get renamed, etc. So now what we're able to do is very quickly say, okay, I'm done with this version of the estimate. So I'm just going to close it off. I'm going to say, hey, this particular estimate is my initial estimate. Maybe it's conceptual. Maybe this was my new SD estimate. I name it off. I give it a couple of detailed notes and kind of where the project's at. So when I come and look at it later, I know where it's at, and I just hit OK. And at that point, I've got a brand new version, and I've moved on to the next. No more of this kind of digging around. Where do I need to save this? I lost access to my VPN. I can't move the files around anymore. It's all just been streamlined. It just made it easier for you to work with.
Awesome. Hey, man, one thing that I wanted to show, if you could just send this back our way for a second, seeing you in that estimate reminded me, I didn't actually hit a save button or anything, and I think it probably helps to talk a little bit about one of the differences in just a feel of working with a platform like this now versus our previous platform. Where in the past, if I were to make changes to something like a template, I would have had to have saved that out, and then we would have had some systems that we built in the back end to then push out those templates to other offices or other locations, or other estimators even within the same office, depending on how that team's had it set up. And then they would have been able to consume that data. But you guys noticed that I was just in a template making changes, and John, without having to even exit out or anything, was able to consume those changes and move forward. And again, it's just because we are in one united system now. So I just wanted to point that out. I think you'll see a little bit more of that kind of as we keep going, but I think it's a fundamental difference in how you think about and work with estimates and how you work as a team. And I think it's one of the things that will enable our teams to be more efficient and more collaborative as we move forward.
One of the interesting things about that is it is a change in the way we think and do stuff, but how quickly you just get used to it. You just start making changes, and all of a sudden things are just there. You don't start thinking about, did I save it? Do I need to save it? Where I'm at? You just get comfortable with the idea it's just taken care of for you.
Do I need to email that layout or whatever to Jim so he can take advantage of that? Or I think this is one of those things that really hits to the fact that we're not running the risk of working off disjoint data anymore.
Right.
Yeah. Good point, man. Well, so what I've got now is I just jumped into an estimate. I thought I saw John over there opening up a hospital estimate that he was working on, so I thought I'd jump in here too and take advantage of one thing. Now, this is a little bit away from our replatforming, but it's such a cool feature that I really wanted to show it. And so I know we're not going to get to show every little feature that's in the estimate or in Estimator 2019.1.0, but this one in particular I'm really passionate about. And it has to do with our takeoff. So one of the things that we used to have to do in the past, which I will freely admit was wildly annoying, is if you wanted to configure your takeoff palette, so your counts, your lines, your areas, and have that configured, you'd have to load a drawing first to get Estimator into that, hey, I'm doing 2D quantity takeoff now mode, which was kind of a pain because now you've got drawings that may or may not have fit within your estimate, or you may not have been wanting to bring in drawings at that time. It just seemed a little unnecessary. So what we've given is the ability inside of our takeoff system to now manage the takeoff templates. And you can do this without having loaded a drawing. Now this brings me to an even bigger feature, and this one I'm super, super passionate about, is we now have the ability to import our palettes. Where in the past you had to one by one create each area or line. This was often something that our services teams would do to take the weight off of our clients and potential clients. So we now have the ability to import from Excel a palette. And where this gets even cooler, I'm just going to show you what something like that might look like. I've opened up an Excel spreadsheet. This is a list of conditions that happen to be, in this case, exported from OST. So in this case, if you've got your conditions from OST, and you can get it into Excel, which is really straightforward, you have the ability to immediately import that into our application. And so you do that just by hitting Import Items. It'll ask you to pick a spreadsheet. So I say, hey, there's a little wizard that kind of walks you through. You say, hey, I want to pick a spreadsheet. I want the first row as headers, if that makes sense. In this case, it does. And then I'll walk through and I'll pick that sheet. So here I'm just going to exit out because, as you can see below, I've already done this. And so this is what the finished product of importing that spreadsheet looks like, is you have all of these created in minutes, which is something that would have taken days prior to. And then even better is our ability to now update information. So if you did want to make changes, and you wanted to make them on a larger scale, you could re-import that spreadsheet, and for everything that matched, it would actually go through and update the properties, the color, the names, anything you set for these conditions of these takeoff pallet objects ahead of time. And I just think that's something that's going to save our users a ton of time. It's going to make their lives a lot easier. It's definitely going to make sharing this kind of stuff better as well. And so before we get too far down the road of how awesome our new platform is, I really wanted to at least highlight that because I was really passionate about it.
You know, one of the other really cool things about that OSD import, it's kind of a little bit away from just the 19.1.0 aspect, but one of our senior developers took his own time to do that. You know, we didn't tell him to do it. You know, it wasn't like, hey, we got to get this done in version X. Like, not only are we passionate about it at Beck Tech, but our developers are super passionate about solving problems and making people's lives better. And so to know that one just took his own time just to make this happen, that's just friggin' awesome. That's it's super valuable for us and you guys.
Well, so one thing I think, just to harp on that a little bit more, John, that people may not know about Beck Technology is that our developers are actually become estimators for a short space of time, and we feel like it's really important if you're going to write a software product that you understand what it's like to live a day in the life, or in this case, a few weeks in the life of the person who you're writing that product for. And I think it may have been one of those experiences that starts to really help shape the need and the desire to go a little above and beyond and care a little bit more about our clients. So yeah, definitely was really impressed that this guy went out of his way to make this super awesome feature.
To kind of staying in that vein of 2D, if I can kind of grab control real quick. So, you know, this whole database back into stuff, it now allows us to have multiple estimators in the same project at the same time. So it's no more of this, hey, let me go work on my scope of work, Mike will go work on his scope of work, and when we're both done, we'll just kind of merge it all together. You know, instead, Mike and I are both working the exact same estimates, so there's none of that merging stuff later. So one kind of real neat, fun way of seeing that is as I do work, Mike can see the work I'm doing. As Mike's doing work, I can see the work that he's doing. And so you can see that as line items pop up, line items quantities change, line items get removed. But kind of a more visual way of seeing that is inside of 2D Takeoff. So, you know, I had this hospital estimate open that Mike was actually working with and showing you guys the palette. So I've got a couple things drawn up in here. I think Mike was working inside of this architectural building 1 sheet earlier. So you can already see that he's got a lot of stuff in there. But as he goes through and works on more stuff, so I think that maybe if we jump around.
You know, actually, one thing I'm noticing, John, is that it looks like on that building 4, there's still a couple of rooms that haven't had any takeoff done.
Oh, yeah.
How about I do on those bottom classrooms 4, 6, and 8? How about I just add a little bit of flooring takeoff there?
Sure.
All right, so I'm gonna drop down. Let's see, find some good flooring.
So yeah, y'all are looking at my screen right now, but I can see Mike right now doing some takeoff. But yeah, you can see I've already done a handful of takeoff. I hadn't finished the job. Mike, being the team player that he is, kind of helped me out finishing my work. And so as he does that, what's going to happen is Estimator will actually start syncing. So we'll start seeing the work that Mike is doing as the two estimates kind of catch up with one another.
And I think this is something that highlights a little bit more of the difference between other applications who have that back-end database system and have this concept of team estimating where when they add costs, it shows up and that team works together. But to add and include all the other aspects of a fully integrated system like 2D and 3D quantity takeoff, I think that's where things really start to change the game a little bit, is having that whole consistent set of data all tied together. So I just now I'm finishing up with these flooring takeoffs. So I sketched a couple of areas. It takes, right now we have about a 30-second refresh. So about every 30 seconds, it's pushing data back out to our cloud server. That's customizable, but it's just something that you can set to make sure you kind of throttle your bandwidth a little bit, make sure you're not kind of having too much chatty traffic going back and forth from your estimating team to your cloud server, which is a whole bunch of techie speak.
And so, yeah, while that's happening, it can be fun to watch, but in practice, you don't want to be bombarded with seeing other people do work.
Right.
So, as Mike's doing his takeoff or Mike's, modifying his costs, I don't want to see my stuff jumping around or just my view changing. So one thing we did to kind of address that is you can now actually modify or update your filter view to also include the estimator. So this is the person who created that work. So I'll make estimator the first person. So I can clearly see here now work that I've done and work Mike's done. So if I want to make sure that I'm not affected by anything Mike has worked on, then I'll just pick on my name. And so then I won't have to worry about seeing anything Mike's doing pop up on my screen and kind of distract me from what I'm doing. And vice versa. If Mike were to do that, he can then kind of isolate his own work. And that doesn't just apply to the takeoff. I mean, that applies everywhere. It applies to the estimate for cost items. So in this case, you can see that Mike has actually added costs to the estimate, and I just haven't added any costs yet. And that just trickles through the whole system.
Yeah. But if John were to, we can filter on his name, my name, anybody else on the team. You can also group your estimate that way.
Yep.
So in our estimate view, we have also added a new column there to allow you to group your estimate based off of who has done which scope of work, and then you can easily sort, filter, cut, slice, and dice based off of that information as well. Of course, it's still in our takeoff audit trails, so that's always been there, but now that we've introduced it in the estimate view and in the filter view, it really starts to tie together your ability, especially as an estimating manager, to get a handle on who's doing what and where they're at in their estimates. But if you're a member of the estimating team and you don't want to be bombarded by anybody else's additional costing, you can filter all that out so you're only seeing your work, which I think is a cool feature.
Right.
Well, were we ready to move to this next piece, or is there anything else you wanted to show, John, that you're super passionate about?
Nothing jumps out. There's a lot of cool stuff here, but I guess in essence of time, though, we should probably hit the next guy.
Yeah, we are actually up on our time, and we haven't even gotten to the my absolute favorite of all of this is our dashboard. So if you could hand me control back, I'd like to show one more thing before we round this out. All right, what you are seeing now is a dashboard that is live connected to all of the stuff that you've been watching us do today. So as we introduce estimates, as we create estimates or add costs or do takeoff, you have the ability now to point dashboards directly to that data. And where this is a little bit different than most systems is that we've actually curated the data specifically to be able to allow dashboards like Power BI, which is what you're looking at here, to take advantage of that in an easy way. So you don't need to be a software engineer to figure out how to make a dashboard like this. This dashboard is just drag and drop. As a matter of fact, this dashboard was created by a couple of interns that had never had any experience in either estimating or really a whole lot of experience in concepts like Power BI. They were able to put this together in less than a day. And that actually included time of kind of like, hey, this would be cool, that'd be cool, and us sort of iterating over different ways to look at this. Now, if you're a seasoned estimator or if you're a guy who's tech savvy in your group and you understand your data and you understand estimates and how you like to see it, you can imagine what you'd be capable of. Now, just for those of you who may not know what products like Power BI are, it's just a generic dashboarding technology. This one was created by Microsoft. There are others out there, Domo, Tableau. There's a lot of different technologies out there that do this. We work with all of them. So it's not like you have to have Power BI or anything to do this, but if you do, awesome. What things that you can do, and by all means, you're not limited to this, but things you can do, you can see here I've got a map of the US. I obviously can zoom in. I can select individual projects. It'll instantly filter all of the data you're seeing based off of what I've selected. You can see that I've got it broken down by building type as well as the volume, average, cost per area across those projects. And you can even see here, I started to graph and dashboard out each estimate and its cost per version. So I can look at any estimate and figure out what is the trend for every version of that estimate. Now, if this gets a little wordy, we can always do things like filter based off of really any information, but in this case, we've set up filters based off of year, based off of project type. So if I say only show me the hospitals, it'll show me the hospitals. It'll filter all that information out. And so now I can see, now we're just looking at hospitals. Or maybe include a little bit of that restaurant too in there. So now I've added restaurant. Or you can do things like filter off of estimate version. So show me only the sections of the estimates that were in DD or SD. All right, we even added the ability to say, only show me the latest version of those estimates. And you can click that and it'll show just the latest versions of those estimates. And so what this gives you the ability to do is it gives you the ability now to have full historical costing, but you'll notice that John and I didn't have to do anything special. We didn't have to upload information or curate the information in a special way or specify one particular classification system. So, hey, we had to pre-agree that it was all going to be in uniform format. No, as a matter of fact, if I jump over to project metrics, you can see you can dive super deep into any of these data. Now, this is still relatively high level. Right now, I've broken it down based off of uniform format, but we can go through and view this in any way we want. So I can pick any one of my WBS properties and break our estimates down that way. So that, to me, is a complete game changer in how you can work with historical costing. Because if you didn't have it all figured out on day one, and you get a year into this and realize the data you've uploaded to your historical costing database doesn't have specific pieces of information that you needed, you're kind of hosed a little bit. But here, your team didn't have to do anything different. They already had this data, uniform format, CSI, phases within the estimate, types of buildings. All that was originally part of the estimate. So all those breakdown structures, how you thought about it, how you grouped it, how you presented it, already baked into each individual estimate. And now, as I go back through, I can choose in real time exactly how I want to present it, how I want to look at that data so that I can make good decisions. And of course, you have the ability to go higher level and use this as a great tool to talk to your clients about, hey, here's locations where we've done some good hospitals or retail work. And here's the size of those projects. And so these bubbles, in this case, are actually sized based off of the volume, as well as have some high-level metrics that you can show. So not only does this give you the ability to have a better conversation with your clients, it also gives you the ability to have full access to historical costing. Now, with that, I think maybe it's a good time for us to transition over. We are a little bit behind, but we're able to stay on and answer any questions that you guys have. So, okay, it looks like we have one question here asking about if you have previous estimates. So, if you have estimates that were from the flat file and you want to get them over here, in this version, the way that we do that is simply copy and paste. So it's simply you go and you copy those items. We actually have an intelligent copy and paste capability to move data in between estimates that has existed prior to 19.1.0. And in 19.1.0, we support that. So you have the ability to copy and paste data. Now, that may be a little bit onerous. It's also something that we can do for you, is move estimates over. We are actually working on another piece of technology currently that will enable you in the next release to directly access those estimates through a different type of Excel import that will actually enable you to have a little bit more information. But we definitely recognize the need. If you've got some older estimates and you need to get them onto the new platform, being able to basically open them up in the new platform is what you're going to need to be able to do. And so that type of concept is going to exist moving forward as well. All right, other questions it looks like we're getting. We had some questions around raster and vector abilities and 2D takeoffs. And I will say there's a lot of stuff that's kind of in the works that we're currently working on developing that is really intensive on the 2D takeoff and 3D takeoff side. But this particular version was mostly around the replatforming. And so we definitely intend to have vector-based PDFs in 2D takeoff moving forward. It is not in this version. There's not going to be any additional functionality other than just your ability to open them and do 2D takeoff, as you've always been able to do with vector-based PDFs. Obviously, those hopefully we answered. And then definitely the Power BI integration was a question that somebody asked, and I think hopefully we answered that here today too. So you guys, sounds like you guys were a little bit ahead of us, but I'm glad to see that we at least we're thinking the same way that you were. All right, let's see. So we have another question here that's asking about changes to 3D Takeoff and our relationship with Autodesk. I don't know how much specifics I can get into, but I can tell you that that is definitely happening. As a matter of fact, I know that we have firsthand seen some of those changes, and being able to access a deeper amount of data inside of BIM 360 to be able to use for your quantity takeoff will certainly happen. So you will see that show up. And the great thing is as soon as it shows up inside of BIM 360, you'll be able to consume it inside of Estimator without having to do any updates or upgrades or anything. The data will automatically be there. Let's see, we also have, is there a way to link gross square foot 2D takeoff to project metadata such as total building area? So we actually have the ability to tie our costs to all the project metadata. We don't have the ability to tie the 2D takeoff to project metadata, but I believe this would work the way you expect it to. I would like to, if this doesn't answer your question, and really for any of you out there, if you have any further questions, always feel free to reach back out to us. But if this doesn't answer your question, I can definitely take a crack at it again offline. Any project metadata we have, we can tie to our costing. And that costing could be driven by 2D or 3D quantity takeoff and include any information in that project metadata. So what you could do with that is maybe drive quantities or a specific, let's say like carpet, for example. Let's say you have 4 or 5 different types of carpets or different grades of carpets. Some of that information might be in your quantity takeoff, like the grade or the quantity. But you might also have additional data that's in your project metadata around location. And that location, depending on the building or conditions on the site, may also have an impact on the pricing for that carpet. And so you can actually pull information from both 2D and project metadata together to help quantify or price any of your estimates. And then let's see, we've got another one. How are you accessing data for the dashboards, APIs, connectors, web beta? So, okay, so this is definitely a little technical, but it's actually really simple. So what we've done is the back end of all of this is SQL. And the raw SQL is, I will tell you, is just about impossible to connect to and build dashboards off of, which is why you haven't seen anybody do things like this before. And when you have, it's been pretty limited. What we've done is we've actually thought way ahead of time in both the design of that database as well as the design of the data in there, and we've created SQL views. And these views are kind of flattened versions of information that you would want to know when asking traditional questions on estimates, like, hey, I want to compare my last 10 offices together, or I want to look at each estimate broken down by version. And so we've created, what do you think, 12 or 13 views, John?
Yeah, somewhere in there, yeah.
Yeah, a handful of views specifically to enable you to answer questions that you would want to be able to ask and have answered on a dashboard. And that is one of the bigger game changers. And the great thing too is that we can add as many additional views as we'd like. So we can even have some things where we can work with each client on a client by client basis to get specific additional pieces of information to them, so that they can have their own custom dashboards if for some reason that data wasn't already available. Well, guys, I hate to do this. We are way over on time. If there are any other questions, if there's anything I didn't get to, by all means, we could be reaching out to you after this. We'll send out some emails to questions if you have any. If you think of anything afterwards and you'd like to ask us, please reach out to us. We are really excited about this. Very, very happy to be able to show you guys today some of the new tech that's coming. John, hey, thanks for at least letting me present with you, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, had fun. Thanks.
Good stuff.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike and John. Really appreciate your time here, taking the time to show us all this. And everyone, be on the lookout in your inboxes for an email. We'll be sending out a recording of this webinar to everyone who registered, even if you weren't able to attend. And then you can also share that with colleagues as well. All right, we'll see you guys at the next webinar.